All right, welcome to Chat Communications Happenings and Trends. Today I have with me Ron Placone. So, Ron, welcome to the program.
Hello.
So, Ron, you have a podcast that you host or you're co-host of?
Well, yeah. Yeah, I have just a straight up audio podcast that I co-host called Five Chords and the Truth. That's about music and politics. And then my stream I just host by myself. That's called Get Your News On with Ron. And that's available on YouTube and the Live Me streaming app. And that's like a live stream.
So what kind of got you into doing these in the first place?
Well, I mean, I was always really into news and politics. Like I was always, kind of really into that pretty much since I graduated high school. I mean, I was kind of apolitical throughout high school because I was just worried about playing in bands and chasing girls and whatever else. But then I got really bit by the bug, around 03, 04. The Iraq War really bothered me a lot. I didn't understand why we were over there. Found out it was because of a lie. I was really, really opposed to the Bush administration. I didn't understand why my gay friends were being discriminated against the way they were. And it kind of jostled me awake a little bit, and I started really paying attention. And media always really fascinated me because, like, I don't know if you ever saw the documentary Outfox, but that documentary came out around the same time I was first starting to pay attention politically. So it was sort of all these things all at once. I was, really opposed to the war, really did not like the Bush administration, was learning what the new American century was all about, was learning about neocons and how awful these ideas were, was learning about the dangers of the religious right, et cetera, and was learning that the media's job was not really there to inform us, that the media was owned by corporate interests, and they kind of just bent the truth to fit their agenda.
So could you give me an example of something like that, where they would bend the truth to fit their specific agenda?
Where do you want to start? I mean, do you want to pick an issue, or do you want to pick this week? I mean, where do you?
Well, why don't we go with something particularly relevant, like the Syrian war, for instance?
Well, I mean, the Syrian war, the headline, the headline everywhere should be that we are a superpower in the world, arguably the biggest superpower in the world, and we attacked another country without even an investigation. That should be the headline everywhere. And why did we attack them? Well, because, we don't like Assad because of pipelines. So we want a reason to kind of stay there indefinitely. And it doesn't make any logical sense for Assad to be behind the gas attack. It wouldn't add up. It just doesn't make sense unless he is just a total unhinged psychopath. And it looks like at this point, at least as of the recording of this, we're never really going to know. I mean, the OPCW never really did an investigation because we went ahead and bombed anyway. But the media just sort of bought the official story and propagated it hook, line, and sinker. And if you questioned it, you were called all kinds of names. Mm-hmm. And I mean, the list goes on and on. I mean, just looking at contemporary examples, net neutrality is a big issue to me. That's something I've been really on the front lines for a lot. And MSNBC is owned by Comcast. So, if you see any net neutrality coverage on MSNBC, which has been about a blip of it at best, you see these Rhodes Scholars like Rachel Maddow pretend like they don't understand it and not really tell you what it's all about because they're paid not to. They know what net neutrality is. They know what's at stake. They straight up pretend not to understand it. During the Bush administration, they were faxing talking points to Fox News. MSNBC intentionally did not cover Bernie as much as they should have. The list goes on and on. I think you had to get your dog. Is that what happened?
Yes.
I heard a bark and then you left.
Yeah, the dog.
I thought, man, either I'm boring the shit out of her or
no.
I had to get her dog. No, it's all good. But yeah, I mean, it's just one of those things when you have a media structure that's allowed to be owned by corporate interests and their first priority is not news and information. Not only is that not good for democracy. It's toxic to the very idea of it. I mean, I don't think the way our media functions should be legal. Like I don't think it should be allowed by law. I mean, I think if corporations want to have information out there, they have the right to do that, but it should be designated what it is: public relations coming from their firm, because that's all it is. We don't have news agencies. We have large PR firms that are under the guise of news and information. So it's not a free speech thing. It's not a First Amendment thing. It's a transparency thing. It's a matter of objectivity, and it's a matter of democracy. This isn't news. Like what they're doing is just not news. Like that's just straight up definitionally not what it is. Now, does that mean there's no diamonds in the rough? Of course not. There are every day, but structurally, it's catastrophic. And I'm not embellishing. It is catastrophic. And that's part of the reason why we're in the mess we're in. A big part of the reason. So, I mean, they didn't talk about DAPL. Why? Because they wanted to see those pipelines go through. Every third commercial on cable television news is for the oil and gas company. It's not because they're trying to get the word out. Oil and gas companies know that you have to put gas in your car or it doesn't go vroom. They know that. They don't need to advertise their product. They buy commercials to get favorable coverage, and it works. They were silent on DAPL. They're silent on fracking. They're silent on what's going on currently with DAPL. You have to dig to find out what's going on. Same with any social movement. They demonize Occupy. I mean, it's a very strategic thing that people have been studying and talking about for years. So, I mean, for me, you asked me like, well, what got me into like independent media? I honestly never saw another option. I mean, I grew up post the Telecommunications Act in 1996, where, I mean, I always loved the idea of radio and loved the idea of a job in radio. But, by the time I was out of college, the idea of like a local job at a radio station was nearly unheard of. Most radio stations, you had one or two people doing the job of 5 or 6. Jobs were really tough to come by because it's all just been homogenized and programming has been syndicated because it has some corporate overlord thousands of miles away in most cases. So, yeah, I mean, I never saw any other option other than independent media. And it's the media I would consume for most of my adult life, pretty well all of my adult life.
So you do something interesting on your show where you have kind of your viewers submit ideas and then you talk about those stories. Is that correct?
Yeah, that's the only thing I do. That's I call it Get Your News On with Ron, the world's first viewer curated streaming news show. Because to my knowledge, there has not been another one and there has not been one prior. But the way it works is that viewers tweet me articles or they use our Reddit subsection. And that's how I make the show. So I log on to a stream. I check my Twitter timeline. I try to go in order the best I can. The timeline fills up fast. So I don't always get to do that. And sometimes people tweet similar things if something really pressing is going on in the world. So I filter it the best I can and try to cover as much as we can. But yeah, I mean, I just cover what people send me. And
so how do you keep up with all of it? I mean, because we do have a problem with the corporate media, right? And so you have to kind of find more independent sources yourself, or at least go out of the seat to consume your media so that you get the story as accurate as possible. How do you go about doing that, especially when it's kind of more of a spur of the moment type of thing?
Well, I mean, first of all, it's not like I ignore the corporate media completely. I mean, I need to know what they're talking about. I need to know, what MSNBC is up to and what CNN is up to, what Fox News is up to. Usually when I'm on those sources, I'm looking for fodder for either myself and or the Jimmy Dore show, but I'm still on there nonetheless. So it's not like, I mean, I pay attention because it's like you need to know what they're doing because they have the power as of right now. Right. But as far as Get Your News On with Ron goes, I mean, I'm just, it's all in real time. I'm just kind of consuming the news the way anybody else would. But, usually you kind of know what's going on in the world just from, seeing what's trending on Twitter, seeing, what articles people in your peer groups are sharing, what's being talked about, whatever. News is kind of all around you. You kind of participate within it. So even though I don't know exactly what people are going to send me, when I log in every morning at 10 a.m. Pacific, or Tuesday through Friday, rather. I guess not every morning, but Tuesday through Friday at 10 a.m. Pacific. I have an idea of where people are going to want to go. And, people share resources in real time. I mean, we've discovered shootings together live before. Like we've discovered like, oh, there was a school shooting. Like I think Parkland. I was on a stream when I heard about it for the first time. So people were tweeting information in real time. People were tweeting Facebook videos that other people took that were there. They were like tweeting that at me, and we were just trying to unpack it together. And that's a little weird. I mean, it's kind of weird hearing about something like that in front of a bunch of strangers while you're on camera, but that's the type of show it is, and that's sort of the experience I think people are going for. I don't think people watch my show because they want some, like well written analysis, because that's not what the show is. I think people go to my show because they kind of want a community to get their news on, to get their news with somebody, and they like the idea that a lot of people on the stream at least have a similar take on things, or at least respect one another. So I think for a lot of people, myself included, at least I hope this is the case, it makes people feel like they're not alone, and like they're not shouting into the wilderness. So that's just kind of what it is. And other people, they're a little newer to these ideas. So it's cool to have them introduced to them by a comedian whose personality they like, and a community of people that are pretty cool and like participating in this thing. So, that's pretty much how I do it, I guess.
Yeah. So kind of moving on to these recent attacks by these larger corporations like CNN on more independent media sources like the Jimmy Dore Show. What is your initial take on that?
Well, I think that what CNN did was deliberate. And I think that it's one of those things. There's a propaganda tool, I believe it's called just sort of association. So in the article that came out recently, where CNN talked about the Jimmy Dore Show, they were trying to list YouTube channels that they viewed as quote unquote extremists. That was their headline. And then they went on to talk about neo Nazis that have YouTube channels. And then in a quick blurb at the bottom, they mentioned the Jimmy Dore Show. And the way the sentence was placed, it kind of gave off the vibe that it's like they were really trying to just put that in there. Like they really just wanted that sentence to be in there. So even though they did not describe the Jimmy Dore Show, I mean, the way they described it, I didn't think was totally fair either. Just because we question official narratives when it comes to war, that doesn't make us extremists. At least it certainly doesn't, in my opinion. But they did acknowledge that we're a progressive channel. I think they described it as far left, but whatever. But they had it in there on purpose because it's like they want the reader to have that association where when you hear of extremists, and maybe even some very ugly extremism, you think of the Jimmy Dore Show. That was placed there intentionally. So, I'm certainly not going to say, oh, well, I guess they disagree with the show. Like, no, it's more than that. And I think it comes down to, I think that it's kind of dollars and cents. I think that the cable news companies, which by the way, their numbers are shrinking by the year. They're still very powerful, but they are a slowly sinking Titanic, and they know that. So their only chance at survival is to grab the internet. That they cornered TV, they cornered radio. Well, now they got to corner the internet, and they're trying. Where is their biggest competitors? YouTube right now. As of right now in the contemporary United States, that's on YouTube. So they're trying to partner up with YouTube via YouTube TV. They're trying to get YouTube to not favor content creators anymore, which it has changed. The way YouTube treats content creators has changed. People get unsubscribed from channels. People do not get notifications. That happens to the Jimmy Dore Show. That happens to my channel. That happens to Secular Talk. That happens to Tim Black. That happens to, I mean, you name it. So that is definitely very real. And it comes down to dollars and cents. Because, again, these corporate media companies, they don't care about creating news and information. They care about making as much money as possible. That's their only motive. Like, their only motive. Making as much money as possible, making sure their shareholders and their advertisers are happy. That's their job. If that wasn't their job, they wouldn't have somebody like Chuck Todd on reporting the news, because that guy is incompetent at best. So, so they're trying to go after the internet. So it's obvious that we're, kind of in their range or whatever, in their scope. And
I see people combating this, because I mean, it is such a large company, poking down or pushing down the little guy.
Yeah, I mean,
see
totally.
any lights here at the end of the tunnel?
Well, in regards to the CNN thing, I really want to believe, and maybe I'm right, maybe I'm not, but I really want to believe that for every one person that would read that article and take it seriously, there are 5 or 6 people that will sniff out the bullshit. And are we allowed to cuss here? I guess I didn't ask.
Yes.
We are? Okay, cool. That would kind of sniff it out and call it for what it is, and then become a fan of the Jimmy Dore Show, or something similar. And then we've already seen it. I mean, a lot of people have, we've seen a lot of people coming to our aid on social media and stuff like that, defending us. The guy that wrote the article, I don't know much about his background, but it doesn't seem like has any business being in journalism, but he's peddling the type of nonsense they want to be spewing. So they published it for whatever reason. I mean, the guy doesn't have very many Twitter followers. He's never really written anything of substance, it looks like. He understands basic journalism 101, because I think he was at least smart enough to, to throw a nice little propaganda tool in there and attempt to smear the Jimmy Dore Show. But it doesn't seem like he knows much more than that. And so I'd like to think people are going to see through that. I think obviously people that already like the Jimmy Dore Show are not going to be deterred by something like that. They're just going to be rattled by it, and they're going to be motivated by it. They're not going to be like, oh, I didn't know. I had no idea the Jimmy Dore Show were these extremists. Like it's like, no, they question the official narratives of war, which, by the way, we've been lied into war a lot in this country. Yeah. An awful lot. In fact, it's the norm. I mean, I think about in my lifetime, it's like, well, man, you're considered a radical if you think the establishment is going to lie us into war. Meanwhile, as long as I've been alive on this planet, how many times have they lied us into war? The answer is every. Literally 100% of the time. 100% of the time. So, I mean, I view it as the opposite. I think if you don't question the official story when it comes to war, you're a radical. Because how can you, I mean, they've lied to you from Gulf War to present and everything in between. They've lied. It's been a lie every single time. Every single lie, 100% of the time. Lie, lie, lie. So what you think this time's the magic? This is the magic one where it's like, oh, we should be doing this. We're helping. I mean, even if the official story was true, that still leaves we bombed without an investigation, A. And it still also leaves B, what the hell are our bombs? How are they helping? How are our bombs helping? Would we be helping the people in Flint that don't have clean water right now if we bombed them? I don't think so. I don't think that would help. I think it would make it a hell of a lot worse. How is Syria any different? I mean, it's just, yeah. So,
I mean, it's absolutely remarkable. Absolutely. Because before we started recording, I got a tweet from Graham Elwood, and we had a discussion about questioning Syria. fear and war narrative, and so you're escalating conflicts. And lo and behold, it got demonetized.
Right.
And so
if you do anything about Syria, it pretty much gets demonetized. A lot of Russiagate stuff gets demonetized. And that's just where we're at. And it's very sad, but I mean, I hope that independent content creators just evolve to whatever the next medium's going to be. Maybe that'll be Steemit. Maybe it'll be something similar. Maybe it'll just be people rely more on like a Patreon type thing. Like I don't know exactly what things are going to look like. But you know, I do know that we need to preserve a free and open internet at all costs. I do know that if that goes the way of the buffalo, we're in a whole lot of trouble. So.
Well, I mean, you're talking about net neutrality and things like that. Do you mind just for our viewers, just quickly kind of going over that and why it's so important, especially for content creators and getting out information?
Sure. What net neutrality basically does is net neutrality assures a free and open and level playing field as far as the internet goes. What that means is an ISP like Comcast cannot prioritize certain web traffic over other web traffic. Like you can't make a certain website load faster than another one. They also can't price gouge consumers. Like, oh, you have to, for certain websites, you have to pay more, like cable television. They can't do that. Net neutrality assures that they can't. We've had assumed net neutrality rules that were unofficially observed since we've had the internet. The cable companies didn't like this because they realized they could price gouge without net neutrality. You know, they can make more money. So they pushed the boundaries a little bit, and eventually they took the FCC to court over net neutrality. They beat the FCC in court, but what the court told the FCC was that if you designate the internet a Title II designation, which basically means it's a utility in people's lives, kind of like running water or telephone. If you designate it as a Title II, then you could enforce net neutrality. Now, Tom Wheeler, a lot of people love to pat Barack Obama on the back for this. A lot of people like to think that he invented net neutrality and that he's the reason we have it. Neither of those two things are true, or even close to being true. Obama gave lip service to net neutrality when it was safe and easy for him to do so. And then when we really had to hold down the lines, it was the people that saved net neutrality because they left so many comments on the FCC's website. The FCC's website crashed in a dose of beautiful irony. And it forced Tom Wheeler, who was a cable lobbyist and didn't want to do this, but it forced him to do the right thing and designate the internet as a Title II utility. So anyone that tells you, oh, Title II means the government controls the internet, why do you think they did it in the first place? That's not true. A, they didn't want to do it. They were forced to by the public. B, Title II doesn't mean the government controls it. It just means it's treated as a public utility, and there's protections there to assure that it's treated as such. That's what Title II. It's like a phone call. If I call you or I call the White House, it's treated with the same traffic prioritization. That's just being applied to the internet. That's what Title II is. That's what Title II does. So the loss of net neutrality, which we lost under Ajit Pai, the new head of the FCC in the Trump administration, the loss of net neutrality essentially means that now ISPs can, they can prioritize different traffic, different web traffic. So something like a CNN.com could load a lot faster than Get Your News On with Ron or something else. And they can also price gouge consumers. They can make the internet look like cable television 2.0 now if they want to. You see those memes out there where it's like the social package includes Twitter and Facebook, and that's $200 a month. That's now a reality. That very easily could happen. There's a couple solutions for this. One, we are fighting it with state net neutrality laws. We have a law here in California that's being worked on. There's laws, I believe, in Montana, Vermont, New York, a couple other states. And those are a good thing. They're not perfect, but they're still a good thing because I think we got to fight this with every unlikely bedfellow we have. And we do have some unlikely bedfellows. There are some big corporate interests that favor net neutrality. Do they favor it for the same reason that I do and that you do? No. They favor it for their own self-interest. Netflix favors net neutrality because it favors their business model. Same with Google. However, in this case, let's take the unlikely ally. don't be discouraged or misled just because these unlikely bedfellows like net neutrality too. I'm like, look, we have the other 364 days a year to disagree. This is one of the things where we're on the same team. Who gives a shit why we're on the same team? Let's just work together because it's too important of an issue. Chuck Schumer, who I seldomly agree with, but Chuck Schumer retweeted a Jimmy Dore show video that I happened to produce on net neutrality. And in this one, for instance, I'm on the same team as Chuck Schumer. For all the wrong, I mean, he's on the team for all the wrong reasons. All the wrong reasons. But I'll take it in this case. It's too big of an issue to, to be, politics makes unlikely bedfellows. This is just one of those for instances. Now, what's the permanent fix for net neutrality? The way I see it, the only permanent fix is broadband municipal internet. What that essentially means is that instead of having an ISP like AT&T or Comcast, we, the public, own our own internet, and we pay a fee, just like we pay a fee to have our garbage taken for our running water to our community. And, you're out in Nashville. One of the leaders in doing this, and a place that was really ahead of the curve, was Chattanooga, Tennessee. Chattanooga's had municipal internet in their town since 2014. They enjoy the best internet in the country, and they pay a lower price than most of us pay for our internet in other places. Sandy, Oregon did something similar. They're experiencing some good results. Longmont, Colorado, Fort Collins, Colorado. It's happening in other places in the country. And this is not the most difficult thing in the world to implement. The most difficult part of all this is all the red tape that you face from the ISP, because they knew this day was going to come. They have a lot of contracts protecting something like this from happening. But, and I'm not a lawyer, but the way communities are fighting this, essentially, bringing it down to nuts and bolts, these agreements were made when it was assumed we had net neutrality. Now that we don't have net neutrality, any prior agreements should be considered null and void. That's the fight communities are having. I live in Pasadena, California. I showed up to my town hall back in January to push for municipal internet. It's going to be on a city agenda on May 8th. I'm really excited about it. I'm going to be there. And then the fight's just going to continue. It might be a ballot measure in my community. It might be something city council votes on to offer to consumers. And either way, my next task is going to be to start a hell of a ground game to try to help make the public realize we need this and how important it is. And, I got some people in my corner, which has been nice. We announced it on the Jimmy Dore show, so a bunch of listeners showed up to the town hall when I did, and the footage from that is online. And I also let people know that if they want to do something similar in their community, they can email me and I will send them my transcript that I used for my statement. Because usually when you make a statement at a city hall, you only have a couple minutes. You have to be very brief. So I took a little bit to write my script, and if they would like a script, maybe you don't speak in public all the time or whatever, if you think my script would help you, I'm totally willing to send it to you. And I even encourage people to say howdy howdy at the end, should they choose to. So.
Awesome. Oh, howdy howdy. Sorry, from earlier. So you were talking about kind of, I guess, moving on and getting these, I guess, that thing on the ballot. But what are some other goals that you have in mind, or anything for your show that you have in mind? Anything along those lines?
Well, I mean, I want my show to just kind of keep growing. Get your news on with Ron it's still pretty new. We started on a stream. Well, like I started just doing it for a streaming app, just kind of on a whim, because I just thought like I had to develop this streaming show because I was, I was contracted to do so, and I just kind of came up with the idea because I was like, well, this makes sense for a streaming show, and then the contract ended, so I was like, oh, well, I guess this is over. But I had built a little bit of a following, and people were tweeting me, and they're like, when's the next Get Your News On with Ron? What happened? I really look forward to it every day. So I developed an actual schedule for it, and I started doing it on YouTube and on a streaming app, and brought it to YouTube. So it's still pretty new. And prior to doing Get Your News On with Ron, my personal YouTube channel had not really been used for like 2 years because I was just busy. I was on the road for a long time. Then I started working for Jimmy a lot. So I just didn't have, I didn't really have any vision for like my own stuff. And then Get Your News On with Ron kind of filled that void, because the cool thing about it is it's not one of those shows where you have a ton of post-production work. You just kind of got to do the stream live. It forces you to just do it live. Bill O'Reilly style. We're doing it live. But
maybe with a little less hostility.
Oh yeah. There's if you don't know the video I'm referring to, there's this video. Okay, yeah, like he freaks out and he's like, and he flips off his app. Mm-hmm. He was probably drunk. Now we know he was probably hammered. But yeah, so I hope the show continues to grow. It's gotten pretty cool, because it used to be I would get to every article people would send, and then we would just talk about nothing for the remaining 40 minutes. Then it got to the point where, man, I just barely covered because, the show's an hour. And then it got to the point where it's like, man, I just barely covered every article that people sent. Then it got to the point where it's like, man, the hour passed by and there were a couple articles I didn't get to. Now it's at the point where if I'm lucky, I get to about half of what people send, which is a cool problem to have. And it's really cool. And I hope that continues. And what I hope to do is I hope to make the show longer. But, I kind of need to grow the show a little bit before I can do that. I need to have it be one of my more main kind of priorities in my day. Not that it's not a priority, but you know what I mean? Like it needs to be more my main focus and my main vehicle before I be able to do that. So, patreon.com/Ron Placone for anyone that wants to help out, to help grow Get Your News On with Ron. But yeah, and in the meantime, I'm just going to keep doing what I'm doing. I like a lot of the work that I'm doing with Jimmy. And that's been, that show's changed my life. And, so we're going to keep doing what we're doing. The fact that we're getting some of the attention that we're getting, I think proves that we're doing something right. And it's really cool to see things growing on that level. And I think this is a good time for independent media in general, because people are really awake right now, and they're really
starving for it too.
And they're starving for it, and they're pissed. And justifiably so in every case. So I think that, it's a good time to be part of things. I think that some cages are going to be rattled significantly. Obama was kind of like Ambien for the progressive movement for years, even though he kind of threw us under the bus in every, for instance. He did he did the right thing on net neutrality at the 11th hour, but he did do the right thing at the very last minute. But now people are, I think people were really jolted away, myself included. 2016 was a really big eye opener, because you really found out. I used to think, I never really felt gung ho about the Democratic Party. I always felt like, well, I'm a pretty left leaning dude. Neither major political party in this country really speaks to me. But the Democrats are going to be the clearer glass to getting to where I want to be.
Right.
That used to be the way I felt. And in some, for instances, that still applies a little bit. But as a whole, that's not really the case anymore. And I've learned that, no, actually, the Democratic establishment doesn't want single-payer health care. They don't want it. They don't want to end fracking. In fact, they want to expand it. They don't give a shit about living wage. They don't give a shit about climate change. They don't give a shit about ending the wars. And all of these issues are connected to our day-to-day problems. The reason we don't have the social safety nets that most other countries of our wealth, pretty much all other countries of our wealth, take for granted, is because we have the biggest military budget in the world. Many times over. We spend enough money on bombs in this country to end homelessness, to end poverty, to give people free college. And the Democratic establishment has no interest in changing that. The Republican Party certainly has no interest in changing that either. But basically, you have two parties. One is completely fringe right. One is, I would say, right wing. I used to say the Democrats are center right. I don't even think that's accurate anymore. I would just say they're straight up a right wing party. And if that represented the people that live here, I would just accept the fact that, well, I guess I really gotta establish a ground game with like-minded folks to, try to get people to change their mind on some things. But the reality is that doesn't. That represents the corporate elite. And, I know a lot of people, he's got his faults. He's not perfect. But there's a guy that made all this a reality to all of this, that made us all aware of this, and that was Bernie Sanders. Bernie Sanders came along at a time when we really didn't realize how many of us there were, and he shined a big old flashlight and he said, "Hey, there's a lot of you. In fact, you're the freaking majority. Does that blow your mind? It blows mine too. But let's start a freaking revolution." And some of the decisions Bernie's made as of recent, I don't know why he's made them. I don't know why he doesn't go third party. I don't know why he doesn't. I don't know why. I mean, I was at the Convergence conference where they tried to draft Bernie. I was literally there. I was in his office in Washington, D.C. I don't know why he didn't go for it, because I think that the Democratic establishment is set up to prevent a progressive takeover. And the reason they're set up to prevent a progressive takeover is because the Republicans don't have to be. The Republicans are set up for the elite, for the 1%, and they make no qualms about it. Right. The Democrats are supposed to be the party for the people, but they're not. So they need some things in place to make sure that remains the case. So they have the DCCC, they have super delegates, et cetera, et cetera. So really, and then you have to ask yourself, well, gee, what's worse? The person that I know is the bully, or the person that I think is my friend, but is going to stab me in the back? Because that's what we have. To our right, we have the bully. To our left, we have the friend that's waiting to stab us in the back. Yes. And I say, hey, there's all these people over here. Let's go freaking hang out with them, because these guys aren't cutting it anymore.
Absolutely.
I forget what your question was. I'll be honest. I don't know. I kind of just started talking.
I don't remember what it was either. That's fine.
I apologize. Yeah, you can please
having conversation.
Interrupt me whenever you need to. Please, like, do not be afraid to interrupt me. I do not take it personally.
I don't. Yeah. Is there anything else you'd like to add?
No. Yeah. Just I'll plug my stuff. Get News On with Ron is on my YouTube channel. It's just youtube.com/Ron Placone. And every Tuesday through Friday, I am streaming live at 10 a.m. Pacific Standard Time. So that'd be 1 p.m. Eastern Time. You get the idea. So yeah, that's every Tuesday through Friday. Check that out. Of course, you can catch me on the Jimmy Dore Show. And follow me on Twitter at Ron Placone. That's where I kind of share all my stuff. And ronplacone.com is my website. And my tour dates are on there. And there's a chance I'm actually going to be coming to Nashville. I'm keeping my fingers crossed, but there is a chance that's going to be in the cards this year. But
Nashville, let me know. Ron, thank you so much for being on the show. And again, we were speaking with Ron Placone. He also has a YouTube channel, and get your news on with Ron. We will link it in the description below. So thanks for being here again. I appreciate you taking the time out of your busy day to talk to me.
Thanks for having me.
No problem.